as it is customary, take a reading from the Holy Quran and Moorish Scientific of America, and extending into the lesson, we can all take a view of chapter 47, measures 1 through 8. Islam. Is my verbal okay? You can hear me out there? Brother Chairman, Islam.
Islam, I can hear you.
Islam, more you.
Islam. Oh, righteous Islam.
Very clear, more.
So, pick up my Holy Quran, chapter 47.
Take your time. Take your time. You told us I was going to chapter 47. That's fine. We would.
Islam. So we're at chapter 47, which will give a lot of references, okay, for our research and our and so the title is Egypt, the capital empire of the Dominion of Africa. So key one, the inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. And this is to read, not like someone else take it, read one line and then I read the next. No, this is just to read through because it extends into the lesson. Islam. So key 2, old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan. 3, his father Ham. Key 3, his father Ham and his family were second. Then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of amexem, the first true and divine name Africa. Let me take my time because see, I want to pass over something I should break down. So we all know that, well, let me extend it before I draw back if I need. So then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of amexem, the first true and divine name of Africa, the dividing of the land between the Father and Son. Key 4, the dominion of Cush, northeast and south. So what I'll do is I'll take what'll come further in the same verse and I have to bring it up now. Okay, so old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Africa who came from the land of Canaan. His father Ham and his family were second. Okay, they came the word of Ethiopia. So we have to understand that the Moabites were given permission from the pharaohs to the Moabites from the land of Moab received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Africa. They were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire. So if I'm missing a beat right now, you'll excuse me because I also have a question sheet. And that's why my first verse was that it is teaching, but it is also a study in effect, though I have my outline clear. So just to bring it clear, we're looking at northeast and southeast Africa, and northwest and south, which dominion of Cush, northwest and southwest, amexem was his father's dominion of Africa. In later years, many of their brethren from Asia and the Holy Lands joined them. Key 6, the Moabites from the land of Moab who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Africa, amexem. They were the founders and the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire. Okay, Islam. With their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking new homes. Key 7, their dominion and habitation extended from northeast and southwest Africa across Great Atlantis, even unto the present North, South, and Central America, and also Mexico and the Atlantis Islands before the great earthquake, which caused the great Atlantic Ocean. The river Nile was dredged and made by the ancient pharaohs of Egypt in order to trade with the surrounding kingdoms. Also, the Niger was dredged by the great pharaoh of Egypt in those ancient days for trade and extends eastward from the river Nile westward across the great Atlantic. It was used for trade and transportation. Islam. So with that being read, we're identifying with we are descendants of the ancient Moabites, descendants of Moroccans and born in America. And we're also recognizing So also in our questionnaire, we're recognizing where is Northwest amexem? Or what is the modern name for Africa? Islam. What is the modern name for Africa? Islam. What's the modern name for amexem, which is Africa? And so we know where the land of Northwest here is given to us. And this Northwest is tying in with Cush, his father's domain of Africa, amexem. So Africa, amexem, America, Africa. So Northwest and Southwest, amexem, Africa is here. Canaan land, even by reference of that name, Islam. And South, Northeast and Southeast Africa is the land of Cush, and where even the land of Ethiopia is, where is even the land of people were known as Cushites. So there, and Moabites from the land of Moab received permission from Pharaoh, settle, inhabit Northwest, amexem, America. So we're looking at that again. And this right here is a copy of the Holy Quran, Moorish Temple of America, with the corporate seal embossed on the second page. So this is an affidavit of truth. Who are the Moabites and their land? Where is their land? So then again, with the key to measure today is on the Northwest Ordinance. And there's no, coincidence. There's no coincidence that it's called the Northwest Ordinance, just like our land, Northwest and Northeast, Mexico. Northwest and Southwest of Mexico. They just left out the South part. So I want to give any, I don't want to give any, what do you call it? When you give something on a movie and spoilers, I don't want to give any spoilers, though guess I almost had. At the same time, here at the outline again, we're going to look to questionnaire of the Moorish Temple of America, E86. What is meant by the word Negro, a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contains black water. So we identify with the Niger River or Negro Islam. We identify with the Negro River, Rio de Negro River, because it flows black water in South America, northwest, southwest. That is southwest of Mexico. We identify with that. So on my question sheet, and I'll move on unless this is also a great time someone wants to bring in their portion. On my question sheet is, what reference do we have with key 8 of chapter 47, Moorish Temple of America, Holy Quran, Moorish Temple of America, and the Niger River? Because the Niger River is on the modern map. It is in was today known as Africa, Islam. And so I was curious to wonder the reference of that Niger River to the Americas. And that's just on the question sheet. And I guess I can give 30 seconds if anyone had a reference to the Niger River and its relation to the Americas, or being in our Holy Quran, because it's not referring to the Rio de Negro. Or if it is, let there be your portion. At the same time, there go 30 seconds for the ideal. And I yield the floor, Islam. On the Niger River and its relation to the Americas and portion of the Holy Quran. And of course, we're all students. Some of our superiors, our instructors may know the answers, and it's not that I'm asking them, I'm not. So I like to move along at the same time.
Islam, Brother Moses.
Islam, go ahead.
I just want to bring out with my presence in the Moorish Science Temple of America that I have learned that particular river referenced here in the Americas is misnamed as the Mississippi River.
The Niger?
And I yield.
Islam
Oh,
says
Niger. No,
yeah,
oh, not okay, not the Nile, the Niger.
yeah, Islam, the Niger,
I don't have a portion on the Niger.
Islam. So I look forward to accumulating that knowledge and sharing it with the group at the same time, receiving it. Islam. So again, now on outline and on Northwest Ordinance and on Northwest amexem, Northwest and Southwest amexem in the Atlantis Islands, Islam is what was known as the Northwest Indian Wars or the Northwest Indian War, and it was primarily fought in Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. So this is that portion. It's a greater portion of what was Northwest Territory, Islam. So the law at that day, the Northwest Ordinance, the Northwest Ordinance of 1787, laid out stages. You know, this we may know this, but what the Ordinance of Northwest Ordinance 1887 done was it laid out stages by which the territories may become new states. Okay, the area north and my quotes are specific to bring the areas north and west of the Ohio River were to be divided into at least 3 territories. So those territories are now the modern states of Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, and some of Wisconsin. I was about to say most of Wisconsin, but it's parts of Wisconsin and Islam and Minnesota. So there's Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, parts of Wisconsin, and Minnesota. So this is in spanning a view of our territory that's been indoctrinated or been placed under false doctrine or been placed under de jure state of government, Islam. So these are some of those ones. Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, great state of Illinois, and parts of Wisconsin and Minnesota. Territories would go through 3 stages of government as their population increased. So the flooding or bringing in of people was what was going on. It was a that's how you got a new state. That's how you got a new state. You know, you bring in the people, and so it's only my imagination because it wasn't my research, but it's only my imagination that there's all type of promotions. Islam. There's all type of promotions to come to the West, and we've seen some of those. Islam. Let me look to my. Okay, so this gets it's really good. So I want to get to roll in. And I'm not trying to expand it. It's just that we're going into some war. So what was known as the Northwest Indian War was primarily fought in Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan. So the new law or that law that they set down by the Northwest Ordinance was basically to create 3 states of the territory, or at least 3 divided into 3 territories. Excuse me. So we got Northwest Indian Wars over those 3 territories. In those territories, the new ordinance offered the following language in regards to American Indians in the said territories. Okay. Okay, so we're looking at the Northwest Ordinance of 1887. I wrote this verse, and I now bypass the moment to look at the document. Though in the Northwest Ordinance, this was what was offered. It reads, the utmost good faith will always be shown the Indians. Their land and property will never be taken without their consent. They shall never be invaded nor disturbed, end quote. And that again is read from the document. So how do we come in on, how do we get in, how is this, how do we utilize this? How is this written? What people were respected, what people were not disturbed. So moving forward, Islam. So the nations, the tribes, some of the tribes in that territory they would not recognize U.S. authority, rightfully so. In that territory, they would not recognize U.S. authority. At the same time, that's why I said rightfully so. At the same time, under research, I want to teach that British agents were active throughout the Northwest Territory until a time that'll come inside this measure. So you got the British Roman still wanting to propagate and looking forward to a new alliance with the American Indians, in particular, Chief Little Turtle, Islam, and I'll get to him in just a second. So prior to outbreak of war, okay, because what was happening is a lot of Indian tribes or bands or groups were attacking at settlers who were impeding on their land and would not push back, etc. And so in those, however we can imagine retaliation acts of the Europeans at that time were like, my next quote is, even peaceful groups were attacked. And that's us. So peaceful groups were attacked and shoved in the boat with the warring tribes. At the same time, this is talking about taking over of land that did not belong to them. Okay, so one of the first U.S. attempts to deal, what I wanted to say before this much, because peaceful tribes were being attacked without discretion, etc. And European settlers were also in harm's way. So one of the first U.S. attempts to deal with this so-called resistance against the expansion of new states. That was the idea of the Europeans, Islam. So next up is what is called the Harmon Campaign. And what it was one of the first U.S. attempts to deal with the tribal Indians in Northwest Territories. So this is going to lead on all the way to the first U.S. Army boot camp. The first professionally training soldiers to be battle ready. Okay, it's right here, or was right there, Ohio, Indiana, and Michigan, for the most part. So I wanted to, at that moment, we had to look at this Harmon campaign because it was the worst, it's dubbed the worst defeat of the U.S. at the hands of, the worst defeat of U.S. at the hands of American Indians, the Harmon campaign. Okay, and looking up the Harmon campaign, it's not much more, other than, we know what we're going into a war. But at the same time, it was the first, and it was a slaughter. It was the worst defeat of the U.S. at the hands of American Indians from when it ended to when it began in their books, Islam. So After that happened, what's called the Harmon Campaign. And I guess we can all look further into that because it's my very own interest. So what happened after the Harmon Campaign was Washington, George Washington at that time, appointed someone named Arthur St. Clair, who was the governor of Northwest Territory. Okay, so this when he wanted to go and get war. So the first thing that happened is something called St. Clair's defeat, also known as the Battle of Wabash. Okay, now here's where we get informative for our Southern nation, because at that time, St. Clair's defeat, also known as the Battle of Wabash, was like when Washington stepped in. That's the president of the United States of America, and so now his appointee had to take to the field. So the first appointee of the president of the United States of America at that day, in all time, sent the man to the field, and that was Arthur St. Clair, and he was defeated, and it's called the Battle of Wabash. Okay, and who they faced and who defeated them was they faced the Western Confederacy, which was a large group of Native American tribes who've been under the king. Okay, we've learned about Chief Tammany, and we know of Rex with our Prophet Noble Draw Lee. So we have to understand who we're speaking of when we go to speak about Little Turtle, because it's also mentioned in record books that Little Turtle had a clear vision of the European colonists' population increase. Islam. So, locals might not see what's going on in the next village, but a king would, because you survey the land, or, the head of a charter, Islam. So the Battle of Wabash was when George Washington went to get involved, and they had to face the Western Confederacy, and it was led by Chief Little Turtle. Okay, so we can all look up Chief Little Turtle. It was entertaining to me, the idea that I have Little Turtle on the screen, just to read a brief of his history record. So at Encyclopedia Britannica, so first thing pops up is Chief Little Turtle from Wayne, Indiana, Islam, Fort Wayne. Or of course, let me say it correctly for his respect. Born 1752 near Fort Wayne, Indiana, Islam, and passed in July 14, 1812, also near or in Fort Wayne, Indiana. American Indian chief of the Miami. And before I read further, that is to note that there's a river called the Miami River. And so it was also a key river during these times of the Northwest Ordinance. So Chief Little Turtle, American Indian chief of the Miami, who achieved fame, as it says, during the turbulent period when the U.S. Congress, get to this, launched a punitive campaign against the Indians, who was raiding settlers in the Northwest Territory. I closed my computer. Islam, so that was the second defeat. Okay, so St. Clair defeat, also known as the Battle of Wabash, was the second defeat. And at that defeat, it led Washington and Congress. Okay, so the first attempt, they go in against, push back resistance for taking Native American land, because it's under my understanding, unless a student would know better, see, King George ceded over his portion, is what I'm seeing. And so this here portion was not his. And so this is the first of it's called the Indian Wars. So that first attempt was the Harmon Campaign. Islam, and it became the worst defeat of U.S. at the hands of American Indians. It sparked Washington to appoint his friend, Arthur St. Clair, who was governor of Northwest Territory, appointed him governor of Northwest Territory. And they launched a military campaign called the St. Clair's Defeat, or more famously known as Battle of Wabash. And giving note and recognition to outside of the nation, they faced the Western Confederacy. And I'm gonna put highlight on red for the Western Confederacy, that it can be an extending of knowledge. So that's led by Chief Little Turtle. So that was the second defeat. Okay, and that defeat led Washington, not alone, appointed his friend like he had with St. Clair. So this time, that defeat led Washington and Congress to what they say, properly conduct a war against, my quote, American Indians, their quote, in the Northwest. Okay, so here we go. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. It's supposed to be stage 3 stages for the Northwest Territories or the Northwest Ordinance. Instead, it's stage 1, 2, 3 on openly declaring war on American Indians, and I quote, and would say it as slowly as possible, the Northwest. And with that, in the early part of the measure, our common knowledge would tie that in with Northwest amexem, Islam. And so it's like, I don't want to get rude, invasive. What do we have? In California, we have something called kudzu vines. And kudzu vines will cover the whole field. I mean, it could have been a grass grove of an acre and hilly like, but kudzu vines would cover it all. And it's an invasive species, Islam. So we have kudzu vines over all the Northwest at this time. And so also our prophet is mended the broken wires. And we know wires, what flows through wires is electricity. Islam, and electricity goes through wires. And then I quote, prophet says he needs finance. And he doesn't say he need money. He doesn't say he need dough, skrilla, cheese, gold, silver, finance. So you got to know that what finance is our work, is our financing, which not finessing, but we're financing it. Okay, so we're financing this. We're sending energy through the wires, and the wires are, we're sending energy through the wires. Prophet connected all the broken wire, mended wires, and we're sending energy to the wires. So there's no despair. Let there be no despair in my description of the kudzu vines all over our territory, or all over what is the Northwest. Prophet also said that he would leave Europeans long enough in government that we would learn to govern ourselves. And so now we're gaining a clear view of where is our land. Because again, earlier I mentioned King George, and he ceded what was his. So now we're looking at the land of Ham, Northwest and Southwest of Mexico, Islam. So that defeat led Congress in Washington to properly, as they say, conduct a war. I just say as they say about the word properly. So it led Congress in Washington to conduct a war against American Indians in the Northwest. And my quote under there, extending. And I gave my measure on the idea of what I mean by them having extended. So here, so what was after that third defeat? So that third defeat, that's when Congress go ahead and commission war units. So again, General Poole, again, I said General, we talk about George Washington. General George Washington, I don't think he's general at that time, and I don't know why I quoted him as so. Though he appointed another friend of his named General Mad Anthony Wayne. Okay, and now we can imagine how Hollywood gives us ones like John Wayne. because these are ones that were notable in what would have been at the end of the, closing of the old world Islam, closing of the old world. So General Mad Anthony Wayne, brothers and sisters. So General Mad Anthony Wayne and the Legion of the United States. Okay. Now we have to take that measure together. 1 second. We're going to look up the Legion of the United States, because this is the first military unit sent out in the Northwest with permission from Congress. And it is the army that was let me look here. It was the army that was commissioned. It was commissioned by Congress to put an end to the Northwest Indian War. Okay, and sadly so, that saying the opening quote of Congress stepping in against wrongfully, not against that ending quote bring with Congress participation in pillaging land illegally, for example, or also another perspective would be, have we abandoned our government, or were we under such invasion that they're not telling us about all the common wars and the mercenaries sent out to decimate tribes in pursuit of land, etc. So it is only my imagination that it's not only that we read that was so, but all that was in between the lines when we're talking about people who would murder their own brother to take his land and kill for sport and lust and greed, Islam. And so those were the people, or those were a majority of those who were coming over here. Remember, England was bringing over. They were sending over their prisoners, or they were sending over here their debtors, called indentured servants, etc., etc. So the army that was authorized by Congress to put an end to the Northwest Indian War was the first attempt at basic training for the U.S. Army recruits, and was highly successful at producing battle-ready forces. And they trained from 1792 to 1794. That'd be 2 concurrent years, training and drilling, to boredom, but training and drilling, producing efficient mercenaries, my quote, Islam. And so what led that out was the battle of, I think it's called Battle of Big Trees. No, it's called the Battle of Fallen Timbers. So right out the gate, Congress coming out, commissioned army called the Legion of the United States. New to me, most new to the class, I suspect. So the Legion of the United States, commissioned by Congress, set out against the good, the bad, and the ugly, all at once. And this was the conquest of Northwestern territories. And there go the closing of our side, or our perspective from our side of the nation. And our side of the nation is the Northwest Territory, versus where was King George's territory with rights to cede anything or charter anything, Islam. And not in closing, though, that final battle of the Northwest Indian Wars took place August 20th, 1794. And it took place at present day Miami. I think it's called Miami or Mamiya, Ohio. Okay. So And what's said in Western recordings is that a tornado must have right before the battle must have most likely crossed through the and destroyed the nearby forest. So a tornado right before the battle comes through, tears up the nearby forest. The British refused to shelter American Indians in fear of them losing their associations with the Americans. At the lot, in the face of losing American Indians, now they on the side of the Americans. At the same time, during this time, as I mentioned earlier, they had agents, solicitors all in the area looking for contracts and deals and camaraderie with Native Americans. But once they would not give shelter to American Indians, that also marked their defeat here in America, because now they were out. So they were out of here in that August 20th, 1794. I'm saying that year 1794. That's about the time when there was no more red coats running around, because they didn't give shelter at the close of the Indian Wars of Northwest, for sake of their business relations with the Americans. And I stressed it to say it because that is what they had and have to continue on today. The British have their business relations with the colonials, Islam, and part of their arrangement. At the same time, I share with you the American perspective. They fly home to England all the time. They fly home to Great Britain and they know that they're English. And you watch English movies, you're gonna see American actors, and you'll say, "Wow, I thought he was an American actor," and he is. He's just in British movies, Islam. So the Treaty of Greenville is next up in the closing to the measures. The class just to be taught as these informations were also brought to me and put in order and outlined. I can go over them and so-called administer in class. So the Treaty of Greenville brought a close to the Northwest Indian War. It was signed at Greenville, Ohio by the United States and a coalition of Native American tribes. And so this is where I close. We can extend this off to next week's class, because see, this is we also marked the time where Congress stepped in against Native American Indians and moved in on their territory. So this was also a moment where I saw a great differentiation or the words Native American and American Indian really come into play right here at the Treaty of Greenville. Because those tribes in that coalition, they signed agreements, Islam, and whatever those agreements were would have to be for future studies, Islam. And so I leave off here with the Treaty of Greenville, and look forward to continuing from there next week, Islam. And then I can say where we'll be going with this is we'll be knowing, for a matter of fact, where we tie ourselves into the land, not only with our Holy Quran in chapter 47, Islam, though with all that is to be known, or what is truth. And with that, I yield. Oh no, I don't yield. One more second. Islam. Last research and lesson is Native American caste system, or I just brought that one. The Native American caste system label versus American Indian status. We'll be careful with that. And in closing, like the Empress of the Washita says, say our land. So Islam, I repeat that the closing of my measure for tonight, or the teaching for the class, is that Empress Virdishi Washita Tunica L Bey, Islam, the late great Empress of the Washita, her common repetitive phrase is say our land. And with that, I yield the floor, and looking forward to our greater realization of our land.
Islam, gratitude. Thank you, Brother Mosiel. Islam was first I rise, giving all perfect praise to our Father God Allah. I give honors, high honors to the noble prophet Drew Ali. I give honors to everything our brother chairman is giving honors to. I give honors to my parents. I give honors to my husband, Brother Richard Hill Bay, and I give honors to each and every one of you who came out to make your holy Quran class this evening. Islam. So the brothers started out with the Northwest Ordinance, right? The Northwest Ordinance. Can everyone see my screen?
Islam.
Islam,
It's
gratitude.
on
You can see it now.
Okay, now we can.
Couldn't see it at first.
Thank you. So the Northwest Ordinance, officially titled an ordinance for the government of the territory of the United States northwest of the River Ohio. The Northwest Ordinance was adopted on July 13th, 1787 by the Confederation Congress. So for those who was here a couple weeks ago, we went over the Confederation Congress, not the Continental Congress, but the Confederation Congress. It's a difference. The one house legislature operating under the Articles of Confederation. So when we talk about the Articles of Confederation and we talk about the Congress that's mentioned in the Articles of Confederation, the Congress that was the legislature for the Articles of Confederation to operate was the Confederation Congress. Islam, do you all follow?
Be quiet. I think you dropped it on them.
I say Islam. This is tying the documents into each other.
That's right. It's tying the documents into one another. It's tying the authority into one another.
Islam.
Islam. The Northwest Ordinance chartered a government. The Northwest Ordinance chartered a government. So if the Northwest Ordinance chartered a government and the government document that it was following was the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union, its Congress was the Confederation Congress. How is it that we came under this Constitution for the United States of America?
Islam, and that is my personal, what I saw in studies to bring a measure for the class tonight was that is a question, Islam Gashikis. That is the answer I'm looking for also.
It's so the question is open to anyone.
Well, let's break it down once again, because so the Northwest Ordinance chartered a government, Islam,
Islam.
and your quote again, Northwest Ordinance chartered a government The Confederation Congress
Mhm.
chartered the Northwest Ordinance.
Well, the Confederation Congress was the legislature for the Northwest Ordinance. So
Got
the
it.
same way that you have Congress in the United States of America, right, is the
Yes.
same way that you had the Congress, the Confederation Congress for the Northwest Ordinance, which chartered the United States of America. So one has a
Oh,
charter and one does not have a charter. So one is de facto and the other one is the real deal. That's why we're in much of the mess that we're in today. Because for the majority of us, we left our nation state. We left our government. Because the governments, they kind of look alike, right? When you look at the name, it looks alike, right? So it's the same thing how you have Moorish Science Temple of America, and we see the articles of incorporation for it, or the articles of association for it on the back of our questionnaire. And then you see the Moorish Science Temple of America and its articles of incorporation with the Secretary of State of Illinois.
Islam.
Those are two different sets of articles. Those are two different government bodies. Even though the names are similar, one is charter. See, this one that's under the Articles of Confederation Perpetual Union is
No.
charter. And in the other entity, it's not chartered. So it doesn't have any authority to be a de jure government.
Islam.
Islam.
Right. So, Islam. Islam.
So now most of what we've been taught is that this Articles of Confederation is no good. We don't use it anymore. It's not a part of our governing body anymore, right? Because it's null and void. But right here, it never said that it was null and void. It said, be it ordained by the authority aforesaid that the resolutions of the 23rd of April, 1784, relative to the subject of this ordinance, be in the same, are hereby repealed and declared null and void. So now you have to go and look at the resolutions of the 23rd of April of 1784 to find out what is actually null and void. Because it's not the Northwest Ordinance that's null and void.
Going in.
It's not the Articles of Confederation that's null and void. Because the Northwest Ordinance, again, is a chartered government for the Northwest Territory. Brother Mosia, you had said a question earlier. You said, well, you made a statement earlier. You said, well, they didn't mention the a Southwest Ordinance, but there is a such thing as a Southwest Ordinance.
I'm dropping it tonight.
So
Islam.
this is the government that the prophet brought us back into. That's why the Moorish Science Temple of America is a charter government.
Oh
This
my
is
goodness.
why our new Mecca is
That's it.
Chicago.
Mm.
This is the reason why the Moorish Science Temple of America is a union.
What? They don't teach that in the temple.
Can you scroll back up to the part or down to the part where you said the resolution of the 23rd?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna bring it up for you.
Okay.
It's
That he want all that.
Screenshotting and writing. It's,
Mm, mm, mm.
right. These are the resolutions of April 23rd, 1784. Right. It's called the Ordinance of 1784. Had nothing to do with, okay, we're not going to be a part of that government anymore. We're going to go and start this other government. That's the hijack. That's the false flag. That's why we're in the mess we're in now. Because we left.
Stagnation.
Here it is, Brother Mosi showed where, I'm not even going to get into that yet. But let's get back into the Holy Quran of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Let's go back over to chapter 47, right? Where it says the inhabitants of Africa are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. Right, so the inhabitants of Amexem are the descendants of the ancient Canaanites from the land of Canaan. Old man Cush and his family are the first inhabitants of Amexem who came from the land of Canaan. So old man Cush is the son of Ham, and he came from the land of Canaan. His father, Ham, and his family was second. Then came the word Ethiopia, which means the demarcation line of the dominion of Amexem. The first true and divine name of Africa. Remember, Africa means terra, terra means land. The dividing of the what? Land between the father and the son.
Yep.
The dominion of Cush, northeast and southeast Amexem. And northwest and southwest was his father's dominion of Amexem. In later years, many of their brethren from Asia and the Holy Lands joined them. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit northwest Amexem. They were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking new homes. Remember Exodus chapter 3, The Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Jebusites. This is a union, a confederacy, a brotherhood. So if we go back, as the brother was saying, Northwest and Southwest, which there is an ordinance called the Northwest and Southwest Ordinance. It's talking about us. This Northwest Ordinance, again, is speaking about us. The Southwest Ordinance, I didn't show it, but we'll be going into that as well. It's talking about us. Here in the Harmer's defeat, it was so atrocious. Because they was never supposed to cross the proclamation line of 1773. Pardon me, 1763. They couldn't do anything with us. So you have the Battle of Wabash, and they still couldn't do anything with us. Then you have this one right here. This is a Dirty Moor, Little Turtle. Little Turtle was the one who came in
Islam, if you change screens, we can't see it.
Islam. Little Turtle was the one who came in and started giving the outline of the landscape. He's the one who started to amalgamate. The Battle of Fallen Timbers is where they really gained, because they had the help of Little Turtle, so you had Little Turtle, and you also had a lot of the ones who was turning on. Basically, we was turning on each other. Now, Britain, which was King George, was actually helping us in these battles that was going on, because King George, through Lord Dunmore, had made the proclamation of 1763, which told them that they couldn't pass the Appalachians. But they continued to pass it regardless. So all King George was really doing was just trying to grab his money. He pulled all his charters from them. So because he pulled his charters from them, They never had any authority. These literally, all of those who was here by way of the charters of King George, after he pulled his charters, they never had any authority to even be over here any longer.
Islam. Oh.
But because of chiefs like Little Turtle, you have some of the Choctaw and the Chickasaw who assisted, because they thought that they was going to get so much money, which is crazy because all of the money was over here. Like, it wasn't a coincidence that there was a gold rush over here. There's no coincidence that over here was the world's first domestic crop that fed the entire world. The reason why they came over here is because they've always come to the land of milk and honey. Anytime they were ever in trouble, they would always return back to Egypt. So we're gonna look at this ordinance of 1784, because before we can even get into the Northwest Ordinance, we got to get into this ordinance of 1784, because that's what was voided. Because the Northwest Ordinance and the Articles of Confederation, Perpetual Union, and the Confederation Congress was older than 1787. Islam, remember the Northwest Ordinance, it says, be it ordained by the authority aforesaid that the resolutions of the 23rd of April 1784 relative to the subject of this ordinance, means it was before 1787. Be and the same are hereby repealed and declared null and void. So 1784 ordinance. Congress resumed the consideration of the report of a committee on a plan for a temporary government of the Western Territory, which being amended was agreed to as follows. Resolved that so much of the territory to be ceded by individual states to the United States as is already purchased or shall be purchased of the Indian inhabitants and offered for sale by Congress shall be divided into distinct states in the following manner, as nearly as such sessions will admit, that it is to say by parallels of latitude, so that each state shall comprehend from north to south 2 degrees of latitude, beginning to count from the completion of 45 degrees north of the equator, and by meridians of longitude, one of which shall pass through the lowest point of the rapids of Ohio, and the other through the western cape of the mouth of Great Conway. But the territory eastward of this last meridian between Ohio, Lake Erie, and Pennsylvania shall be one state. Whatsoever may be its comprehension of latitude, that which may lie beyond the completion of the 45th degree between the same meridians shall make part of the state adjoining it on the south, and the part of the Ohio which is between the same meridians coinciding nearly with the parallel of 39 degrees shall be substituted so far in lieu of that parallel as a boundary line. Now, here's the problem with all of this. This is heirs' property, and heirs' property can't be sold. Heirs' property can't be sold. So it says, as is already purchased. It's already purchased. It's heirs' property. Or shall be purchased of the Indian inhabitants. You can't cede something that doesn't belong to you. The settlers, here's the settlers, on any territory so purchased and offered for sale shall either on their own petition or on the order of Congress receive authority from them. Who's them? Who's them? Who's the settlers?
Oh, the us, American Indians.
Who's the settlers?
No, hold on. It's I'm thinking of settlers of the estate.
The Puritans, Chief Timothy, them, and Penn, the Treaty of Penn, them.
Who?
Those settlers. The Puritans. Settlers are the ones who would be granting, you know, for instance, if we were talking about from a trust standpoint, those were one who would be making the trust and granting it for use to another individual.
Right. So that's if it is a trust document.
So even if we're talking about, for our purposes, the settler would again be.
This talking about land.
Okay.
So who's the settlers on the land?
Spaniards.
Who?
The Europeans who came to settle.
The Europeans, exactly. The Europeans are the settlers on the territory, on any territory. So purchased and offered for sale shall either on their own petition, so they will have to petition, or on the order of Congress, or Congress will have to order for them to receive authority from them. Who is them?
The true possessors of the land.
Islam. With appointments of time and place for their free males of full age within the limits of their state to meet together for the purpose of establishing a temporary government, to adopt the Constitution and laws of any one of the original states, so that such laws nevertheless shall be subject to alteration by their ordinary legislator, and to erect subject to a like alteration counties, townships, or other divisions for the election of members for the legislature. So the settlers had to provide the free males of full age within the limits of their state to meet together. Do y'all know why they couldn't do it alone? Do y'all know why they had to include us into their states?
Because we own the land.
And we were there, like free roaming people.
Not only that, but let's go back to it, says that they had to either petition on their own will, or they had to have an order by Congress, right?
Right.
So in order for them to become a state, in order for them to become a state, like the other 13, they had to provide their free males of full age within the limits of their states to meet together. This means they had to have a certain amount
So they
of
had to
free
have,
males of full age within the limits of their state, right?
right.
They wasn't able to do it. This is why they had to include us.
Oh, to get their
Because they
numbers
didn't
up.
have enough free males of full age.
What's full age?
Right
The
to
age of
vote.
majority.
Okay.
Mhm. This reminds me of Democratic Party. Gotta keep, they need some, they need.
This was before there was a Democratic Party or any of that.
Yes.
All right. Islam. So in order for them to create or be a part of another state, to have another state created, they had to have enough free males of full age. They did not have enough free males of full age. This is why they had to have us to be a part of the government that they created.
So wait a minute. What is the, so again, it doesn't specify what is the number of free males that were necessary. Now we know for our purposes it's 7 for a meeting to take place.
Right. They had to have, I gotta go back to it.
But
Here it
let's,
is.
okay.
20,000.
Okay.
20,000. They didn't
Okay.
have it.
So now
The
let's,
reason why they didn't have it is because they weren't free.
right.
They still owe Britain and they owe France. They didn't have free. This is why they created this whole thing called a free white person. This whole this free white person was created to be able to give them freedom. They wasn't free. They didn't have the ability to be able to vote.
Well, even that being the case, now, how can we be added into the mix
Because
and help them with their cause? Because if
we
they
had
need
chiefs,
20,000,
we
how
had
can we
chiefs
just,
we had chiefs like Little Turtle and other chiefs who added us into their government bodies. We made the numbers.
so basically what you're saying is you know, we got added into their numbers falsely to give them those numbers that they necessarily needed to be able to get their paperwork submitted to be able to do what they needed to do.
Well, we didn't get in there falsely. We got in there because again, we had leaders who put us in there. Just
Yeah,
like
but what
we
I'm
got,
saying, when
we
I
got
use the term
leaders.
falsely, I'm meaning that, you know, chiefs like Little Turtle and other chiefs were counting us, even though we shouldn't have been counted into those numbers because we're not Europeans and we don't fall into that count. It's almost, I mean, that's the easiest way for me to put it.
Mhm.
We shouldn't have been
Well-
counted. It's like doing a census and counting people in the census that don't belong to a certain group.
Well, I'd like to ask, in his mentioning the count.
Hold on. So when you have leaders who have authority to say yay and nay, right? For example, right, they put us into another fictitious governing body called the United States, right? And so the United States has a president that represents its citizens. And so even though we are saying we're not your citizens, we're not citizens of the United States, they still put us and count us in.
I got you.
So now everything that happens, the world don't look at it like, okay, yeah, you know, those are the Moors, or those are the American Indians, or, you know, those are the Creek Indians right there, or, you know, that's the Miami's right there. That they don't look at any of that. You know, that's just the same thing. Like if one of us that looks like us says something or does something out of pocket, the world don't look at it like, oh, you know, that's just you know, one. It's a reflection on all of us. So by default, because we all look alike, we all seem to be that way to the world because that's what's perceived. Even though we're saying we're not citizens of the United States, the world don't see that. The world just see, oh, you're an American. Because that's what's being pushed. And that's what's being taught.
Well, let me ask you another question, and if necessary, you can go to Brother Mosi first and then come back. But in thinking, you know, as we're breaking down this, history of the Northwest Ordinance, and I believe we covered in other lessons, you have North America, Central America, and South America, correct? And so Mexico is in America, Canada is in America. So why wouldn't they be Americans?
They are Americans. They're Americans, but then they also went into, like, for instance, the Northwest Ordinance. We already know that the Northwest Ordinance was also, Canada was also a part of that.
Right.
And then you have Mexico that was pretty much running its own governing body. And it was going through the same war. Like they'll say, okay, yeah, you know, the war ended in 1812. But then they'll say there was a war of 1812. Doesn't make logical sense.
No, not at all.
So the Mexican War ended in the Indian and French and Indian War, or what they call the quote unquote 7 Years War, ended in 1812. And then in 1812 started another war called the Mexican War. This is all the same war. And it kept going on. It did not stop. Even the Civil War. So you went from the French, what they call the French and Indian Wars, to the quote unquote Mexican War, which was a Confederation Wars. Then from there, you went into the quote unquote Civil War. That was the first one. After the first Civil War, there was a second Civil War that was being fought south of the border. That's never even taught to us. But the only way they were able to even kick off what they kicked off is because there was a lot of dirty Moors that put us into slavery. That's why the prophet said your own brother will do it.
Well, Jesus had Judas, so
It's
it's always your own.
right. So it says that when any such state shall have acquired 20,000 free inhabitants, so you had to have 20,000 males, free males of full age, on giving due proof thereof to Congress, they shall receive from the authority with appointments of time and place to call a convention of representatives to establish a permanent constitution and government for themselves.
So this was the petition to get the charter for them to basically set up their own states, or was this was the charter for independence?
This was for them to be able to get charters, to be able to have their own government. But that's not what happened. What really happened was they didn't have enough free males. So they started coming through the back door. They use the lodges. The Masonic lodges. Because we really was the ones who created the Masonic lodges. Yeah, we created that. We gave the world science. So they started coming through the back doors, and there was a lot of shady deals that was made by chiefs.
So what was the motivation or the benefit to that? Because
we was constantly at war with each other. So if I'm at war with you and I'm already selling my slaves that I win from the battle, I'm already selling slaves. Like, you gotta understand how much money was being made.
well,
So we got the first world domestic product.
crop, right? You talk about the crop, right?
Right.
So I get that part, but I'm saying, like, so for me, anytime you look at let's call it a strategic move that's being made, a business deal or whatever, there's got to be a benefit to doing whatever it is you do. So for me, I look at it, what was the benefit that, Little Turtle or some of these other dirty Moors were going to gain from helping these Europeans establish their own government?
They get to get more land.
We already have the land, though. How can they get more land?
No, I'm talking about the chiefs.
So you're saying by them helping the Europeans establish their own government, the chiefs can, it seems like you're taking, for lack of a better terms, it's like you just, you dividing the pie up and reshaping the dough, but it's the same land. It's already my land, because land is a finite resource. So it's like if they are petitioning to be able to govern themselves, we're not creating new land. The land got to come from somebody's ownership.
Right. So the chiefs all had particular parts of the land that they
Okay.
were over.
Okay.
But if I'm a chief and I say I want to be over everybody, right? And I'm gonna be as shiesty as I'm gonna be so I can be over everybody. I'm gonna take everybody's land. Then that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
That's what chiefs.
Yeah, but you lost me right there. Because if all of us are chiefs, you're a chief, Brother Arnell Bay's a chief, Mosey a chief, I'm a chief, and we all got our own individual lands, whether I help, somebody else develop a charter to now petition us for land, how does that take from the other land that I like? So again, is there a pool of land that's not currently being ran or that's not currently being overseen by some chiefs?
No, the land is being overseen by chiefs. It's just I'm a greedy chief and I want yours too.
So, but again, I got to give up my land. If the Europeans get a charter, I got to then contribute some of my land towards their charter.
No, I'm going to take over your lands. I'm going to kick you off and I'm going to
give
take
it
over.
to the European.
So.
How did that don't make sense to me?
Well, I believe it's just, sell some, grab all, sell some. And since especially you got that hot syndrome, you got good commodities, and now you selling land. That's a lot of money too. And you could go, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that part, but I'm saying, like, for instance, if I got my land, unless you come in with some horses and some arrows, or you got some guns or something, I'm not about to just give you my land.
Yeah, that most likely was cause of a lot of the wars, because the good were probably most bountiful and were sure to be attacked in those days for their land. Islam, I yield. It's just
that makes sense. I'm just still lost, and I don't want to belabor the hour, but I'm just still lost on how again, the Europeans apply to a Congress. I see they got some dirty Moors representing them. They get the numbers they need to meet the quorum through the back door, and now they petition for land. I'm so confused on how, again, you gonna take my land and decide to give it to somebody else? What I'm gonna be doing while you doing that?
Fighting for your land.
That's right. That's right.
So if I'm one chief and I'm fighting, then I got 3 chiefs fighting against me.
Okay, that makes sense. You outnumbered.
I'm outnumbered. They dirty work me.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's what was going on.
Okay, that makes sense. Now I'm with you.
And that's what was going on. And
Okay.
Certain lands produce more than others. So you have those who was a part of the coup and those who was fighting against it.
Okay, so then that then ties into the other demonstration where Little Turtle and these other dirty Moors, even though they were doing what they were doing to acquire more land and essentially giving it to the Europeans, selling it to the Europeans, they still knew that the land couldn't transfer in perpetuity to these Europeans because of the way it was set up. So it's just like, okay, I'm going to do all of this. I'm going to enjoy the fruits of the trade or whatever it is that I have got off of you. And now you're thinking this is a legitimate deal to where now you got this land that you can then pass down to your lineage. But in actuality, there's no way for you to pass it on because at some point in time,
the land is a fee-tail estate. So
it's a fee-tail estate. So you could never
know that. So the chiefs know this. So that's why they gave them land grants. So we're going to grant you this for a certain amount of time to be able to, farm.
Well, I would imagine that time has been up.
Oh, that time
long ago. So why we ain't, well, I guess that's what the prophet was attempting to do, is put us,
That's what the prophet did. This is why it's so important for each and every one of us. The prophet said, now go save yourself. It's important for each and every one of us to do exactly that. Because the further that we go back in finding our ancestors, through resources like ancestry.com, so on and so forth, right? We find that, hold on, my ancestors owned this land. And this was never actually deeded over. Like a deed and a grant is not the same thing.
It's definitely not.
This was never deeded over.
I mean, they didn't start the deed process anyway till much after that time, right?
They had deeds in Europe. They knew what deeds was, but they didn't.
Well, let me not say that. I mean the recording of deeds process, because again, they had deeds because everything was done based on a bill of sale, right?
No. They always had a version of a recorder of deeds.
Okay.
They had it even in Europe. When they came over here, them folks, they wasn't free. They had to work off their freedom. A lot of times when it was time for them to get free, they couldn't get free. They didn't even have enough free males of full age,
Right.
to create their own governments. So they had to use us as numbers to be able to get it off. So their government never became a permanent government. We know their government never became a permanent government. Why? Because the presidency is what? Every 4 years. That's not a permanent government. That's why they have administrations.
Huh.
The legislature is every 6 years. That's not a permanent government. They never had a permanent government. We have a permanent government. Prophet Noble Drew Ali said he'll always be the supreme
Grand
Sheikh and chairman forever, even in deific life. That's why we have a permanent government. Because he went back to honoring our ancient forefathers' divine creed and principles. Brother Mosia, your question?
Well, it was just in reference to that latest reading on, they had to make us a part of it, referring to the government. Now, it yielded out that we were used as a count, like the census. Though I wanted to ask, how were we made a part of those state governments, if other than just by being counted at census? Were we made a part? How?
So once we were counted in, now we became citizens.
That's right. Taxpayers. Well, part and partial is
We became citizens under that government. So it says, provided that both the temporary and permanent governments be established on these principles as their basis. First, this is the principles. First, that they shall forever remain part of this confederacy of the United States of America. See that? See that? This is the reason why they continue on with the name. To look and appear like it's the Confederacy of the United States of America.
I have a question about that. So does it make a difference? Because right there, it's not capital
Yeah,
versus,
difference.
okay. So for us being citizens of the United States of America, that would be the capital,
It would be lowercase, the way that it's
the way it is here. Got it.
Confederacy of United States of America.
Got it. Thank you very much.
You're
so
welcome.
Grand Sheik is just as if it is with the business side of things, whenever we see something in all caps, it signifies the corporation, right? So this is the indication of the de jure government that was set up of the Republic form, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That's shown in the Articles of Confederation and Perpetual Union. That's why it's a perpetual union. It's never going anywhere. Second, that they shall be subject to the what? What I just said, Articles of Confederation. In all those cases in which the original states shall be so subject. So them 13 colonies that became 13 original states, even they are subject under the Confederation, the Articles of Confederation. And they always have to remain a part of the Confederacy of the United States of America. And to all the acts and ordinances of the United States in Congress assembled. So all of the acts and ordinance that's passed in the Confederation Congress, they have to conform thereto. Third, that they in no case shall interfere with the primary disposal of the soil by the United States of Congress assembled. So again, they didn't have any authority with the land. They didn't have any authority over the land.
Islam. Can I ask another question?
Mm-hmm.
So listening to the way you're breaking this down, I guess my question would be, is the Congress that you are reading about and mentioning this currently active or dormant? And before you answer that question, because I was just going to say, it seems that it's dormant, and that what we know to be quote unquote Congress today is really the Congress for the de facto government that's operating as if it is the de jure government, but it's really for the corporation of the United States. So where is the true Congress?
We need to stand up.
I was also questioning, could we call a meeting of that Congress?
Yep.
Could a meeting of that Congress be called? Are they
Yes,
standing by?
Yes, we can.
Well, it seems like we are now in the position that they were in back then, is that we don't have, technically, we don't have enough free persons. Well, and if we do, we ain't got them all unified in order to be able to do what is necessary.
That's what the temple is supposed to be doing.
Indeed.
Financing.
However, that's always been our biggest
If you look at most temples now, right? Most temples now, they're not going to teach this. They're not teaching this. right? Their thing is, okay, again, the backdoor stuff. This is still the backdoor stuff that's going on.
How many people you need for Congress to be able to stand up and start the process?
We need a lot.
Do we need 20,000?
Well, we don't need 20. We need 20,000 of us at least. That's free. Free males. We need at least 20,000 free males.
Yeah, y'all talk about for our own state.
No, I'm talking about, so brother Mosa, we gotta follow the breadcrumbs that she's laying out in this. So in order to understand how to undo what was done, you got to first understand what was done. And so it sounds like they basically have, think of it like you laid a transparency over the existing document, and now you start tracing on it. And so what we believe is factual is not. And if you peel the layer off, we'll get down to the bottom of it. They got this Congress and everything else set up, running it as if they're running the true country, but they are not. Right. So in order to get things back in alignment, we have to have enough people in order to stand up and say, all right, the game is over. We're gonna go ahead. We're gonna get back to the jure government. We're gonna go back to the original Congress the way it was written. We're gonna go back to the original articles the way it's written.
Well, yeah, probably say we're gonna have a member in Congress.
Yeah,
so
but
we'll be all right.
That's my question: is how many people do we have to then have 20,000? Because we got too many brothers in the temple and sisters arguing over where the flag's supposed to be, which side the flag got to be on, all the stuff that ain't even important.
We gotta watch what we recognize, because the prophet ain't looking at none of that. Prophet ain't saying none of that, ain't seeing none of that, and we got his words and footsteps clearly cut. So yeah, that entertaining is about the Lord self coming up.
And I understand what you're saying, Brother Mosi, and it's all well and good, but what I've often heard that a confused mind does nothing, and what happens is we sit around in meetings, on phone calls. I mean, even if you go visit other temples, man, I can't tell you how many times I've been around other Moors, and we arguing about the wrong stuff that has no bearing and no importance on actually moving the Prophet's movement forward and actually getting things back in the way, in alignment the way it's supposed to be. And as long as that's the case, we are never going to be able to move in the right direction if we ain't focused on action, because we're just chasing our tails.
It's fine. So, I mean, it's just going to take more to do it. That's what it's going to really take. It's going to take more to do it.
Well, let's get into the technical question then. I'm a logical person. Now, how many temples do we have right now total? I mean, and now if we want to break it down into the ink versus we can get all into the technical. How many temples do we have?
I mean, all together, I don't care what body or whatever you're part of, I would say a good maybe 750 different temples.
Okay, now out of 750 different temples, what would we say is an average membership body at those temples?
Average members or average active members?
Let's go with active, because the ones that sitting at home, I mean, although that might, I mean, I guess that would be important, because if you have to go and rally the troops, I mean, it's important to know how many people you have, period. Because you need to know how many active you got, because so I would be interested in knowing the number total, because let's say we had 50,000 members, we only got 10 active, we know we at least got a pool of 40 that we can go try to shake out some trees and wake up some to get to the numbers you need to be at.
Right.
So let's say 750. Out of those 750, how many membership average? Just
active members. Average it's kind of hard to do.
Let's be very conservative. Let's be conservative.
Yeah, if it's gonna be an average I would say no more than 50.
So
That's
50 per temple.
Mhm.
So that right there is 37,500 Moors right there. Just if we got 750 temples and we got 50 members that's active at each temple, that's more than enough to get done what needs to get done. Now, so the numbers ain't the issue. Then we need to
Communication.
figure out what the issue is. Is it unification? Is it
Telecommunications.
is it everybody not wanting to be? So to me, I find typically what it is it's too many chiefs and not enough Indians. And what do I mean by that? For people who might be on the line that don't understand, is that there's too many people who want to be in charge and not enough people who want to say, hey, I'm willing to fall in line and allow somebody else to lead because I'm confident they're going in the right direction.
It's
So now,
it's too many. The issue is like Brother Mosio said, telecommunication.
So when you say telecommunications, what do you mean? Like people can't come together and be on the phone, or what? We just can't meet?
What he's talking about, the communication itself. Man needs a pattern for his life, right?
Right.
So what we find is man loves to follow.
Okay.
Like when we look at an average of those who would just go out and save themselves, it's not many.
I agree.
When we look at an average of who's just going to follow their leader, there's a lot of those.
Okay. So let me ask you
I'm
this.
just going to follow my leader, and whatever my leader says, I'm trusting that my leader is not leading me away or astray. Now, the reason why you heard my husband saying, man, you dropping some jewels tonight, is because you can go to any temple, ain't no temple going to ever show you and teach you that we're still under the Articles of Confederation and can actually show and prove.
Well, that was exactly where I was about to go with that. So now, if you got this information right here that can be shown and proved, it's not, truth can't be debated, especially when you got the facts in front of you. So now, so let's again go back to this numbers that we're breaking down. You got 750 temples. Each temple, I would imagine, has a sheikh, grand sheikh in charge, correct? And I would hope that if you have a temple that you at least can influence the 50 members that you have that's active and they might listen to you in some sort of way and fashion, correct?
Yes.
So now with that being the case, you've been in network marketing, right?
Yep.
We know that everything starts with the small group. So we call them, in-home meetings, PBRs, private business receptions, whatever you want to call them. So it's, when you talk about the communication standpoint, when network marketing, what you typically do is you take a small group. So you take this group of 50. Now, this is being duplicated all across the country. So each 750, temples, each one has their own meeting of 50 people. And so now you got this information to say, listen, we're still under this Confederate laws, sort of yada, yada, yada. We go through all of this information that you went through. And this is something to me that's easily duplicatable and can't be debated. So now you sit this in front of the sheiks. Hopefully they're willing to say, look, here's where we're at. We need to get enough people together so that we can get our government back in alignment. So now that information gets passed on at 750 individual meetings to their 50 members. And then at some point now you regionalize that. So now let's say out of those 750 is broken up into, I'm just going to use round numbers, 10 states. So now you got 75 temples in each state. So now the states come together and they have a meeting of the 75 temples in their state. So now they didn't have a local meeting. They didn't have now the state meeting. And then eventually you get together and now you got a national meeting. And so that's how you assimilate information from what I've seen.
Smoke.
And it works if it's done properly, if you got enough people that are willing to actually come together for a common goal.
Right.
Now, I may be naive in believing that that's possible, but like the prophet said, if you ain't trying to help, you're an enemy of the cause.
Mo, there it is. You know why Moore's not going to follow it? You want to know why?
I'm listening.
Because it ain't from their leader, Mo. Because it's coming from me.
Well, listen, it's at the end of the day, man, the prophet did say we're dealing with a stiff-necked people, but man, self-preservation is the first rule of nature.
They
And I
don't
don't care whether I'm dealing with
it's the young, it's gonna be the young and the yet unborn, right? The old men. This is why I love our home office, right? Our home office, the only home office that don't have the old man fight. That's what I call it. I call it the old man fight. Where I gotta fight and I got a windmill for my old man, because my old man, which is my national grand sheik, my supreme grand sheik, and whatever he says is the gospel. And I just got to follow him because he been doing this for over 100 years. I mean, brother E. Rice Bay, am I on it or am I not on it?
Well, brother E.
Because-
Rice Bay trying to come off mute, man. I don't want to keep interrupting you, Sheikahs, but man, like I'm seeing this from a maybe, like I say, maybe I'm naive in believing the possibilities, but it seems that again, at some point, you have to stop cutting off your nose to spite your face.
Yep.
So
there's a spider right there.
if we are to move forward, you know, we always say, again, I'm gonna use the network marketing references again, you got to work with the willing. So again, we ran through those numbers, that 750 times 50, you know, out of those 50, you might have 2 or 3 that might be willing, whether they leader is willing or not. My point is that I feel like we got to work with the willing and those that are saying, look, here's what we're trying to do. Somebody out of those 50 in each STEM temple, somebody got the light bulb got to go on and be like, okay, this makes sense.
It is. And you know what happens to those? Eventually they just leave and they don't deal with the temple no more.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that. But here's what I've also seen happen, because I just witnessed it this week, Sheikahs. And I had to sit down and I'm telling the brothers, I'm like, listen, y'all are trying to get together and have a meeting. And I understand what you all want to do. However, you might not like the temple, but what y'all are doing is running the temple. So if you're having a meeting, if y'all got minutes, if y'all got positions, if y'all collecting money, if y'all got stuff that y'all voting on and y'all making moves, you running the temple. So why reinvent the wheel? Why not just get back in line? And as men and women, as adults, let's iron out whatever frustration you got. So if you had an issue with the temple, bring it up. Tell us what the issue was. Somebody said this, somebody did this, and this is how I felt. Okay, let's address it. But you going running out of the temple and spitting back at the temple ain't about to help.
Yep.
And don't get me wrong. I mean, I've seen it in churches I've been a part of my whole life. And man, but my thing is this: we in 2022.
Yep.
The prophet up in past form almost 100 years ago. And for us to still be, we almost like the Egyptians wandering in the wilderness with Moses. Like, at what point we gonna get tired of a journey that should have took us, 6 months? We wandered in the wilderness almost 100 years after the prophet didn't die.
Right.
It don't make no sense.
No, it don't make any sense at all. It really don't make any sense.
And I don't know about everybody else, but I'm listening. I'm tired. I want to be in that land of milk and honey that I'm tired of wandering in this wilderness with this foolishness these Europeans putting down. This stuff is frustrating.
And it's only gonna get worse. It's not like they've already created a new class of slaves, right? They got everybody that just came through the south of the border. They didn't already created their new class. They got all the Afghanis that came over. They got all the Ukrainians that came over. They'd already got it. They already got the numbers. They already got it. So for us, in the knowledge, wisdom, and understanding that we have as Moorish Americans, it is sickening to look at these older adults because all of these, these leaders, all these leaders are way older than me in age. And they've been doing this way before, I got here and started doing this. But it's because it is me. More, let me explain something to you. Years ago, I created a fake page on Facebook. No, a lot of Moors don't even know that it's me. And I used to drop so much information where you had Moors and these quote unquote groups that they have. Like one of the groups that they have is called a group called Ali's Men.
Mm-hmm. Familiar with it.
And they would discuss what it is that I was posting. They didn't know it was me. They didn't know it was me. There would be brothers that would call my husband like, man, whoever that is, they know more science and they breaking it all down, right? But because there's no face to it, there's no name that's familiar, it's just the page, they loved it.
The sad reality of that is that that's ignorance on their part, is that if you have to judge the message by the messenger, that's on the individual that's trying to receive the wisdom. I mean, you can
That's
learn from
because they all
anybody.
want to look like my group is the group. Come be with this group, because it's not real. It's about what it looks like. Many of us in life have never been anything and have achieved anything outside of having this title in the temple.
Yeah,
That's why I tell Moors all the time, don't get stuck on titles. Get stuck on the work.
Yeah.
That's why when Moors ask me, what do I call you? Sister is good.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, I may not be grand sheikess, grand governess. I may not have any of those titles one day. I didn't come in with those titles. I'm not going to leave out with those titles. But what I'm going to always be is I'll always be a sister of the human family. So I'm good with sister. I'm content and I'm happy with sister.
Well, sister, I'm tired of this foolishness of this going in circles with these folk. And what's the solution? I'm about answers. I've been told you can make excuses, or you can make solutions, but you can't do both.
That's right. So my solution is that I'm continue to put the information out there.
Islam. I'll say though, brother, that solution is unity and dissolving confusion. And when the smoke clears and truth is evident, the writings on the wall, and because our constitution and bylaws is uncut, there's no need to trim it. It's right there. It's solid. There's no empty words, no spaces. So we got what we need.
Well,
and
let me rephrase my question, Brother Mosi.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna rephrase my question. What is the solution that we might be able to see in our lifetime? Because it sounds like a lot of the solutions, I feel like the solutions you're giving are good solutions. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like a lot of the solutions are kind of the good things will come to those who wait type solutions. Like it seems like we are delayed in our gratification of reaching where we're trying to get to, because it's like we content. And I'm not saying any of us on this line, but it's like people seem to be content just letting people be stuck in their ways of continuing to act idiotically and stay where we're at in spite of what needs to be done.
No, it's not going to be until these people cut off their water.
Well, yeah, well, like the prophet said, look, most of these Moors ain't gonna do nothing till the sword is upon their neck.
Yeah, when they get their water cut off, then it's oh man, what we gonna do? What the temple gonna do? You know.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I ain't trying to wait till my water get cut off. That's why I'm asking these questions, because I want to know before that.
Yeah, so just have your family affairs, together. They gonna cut the water off.
Oh, I know it's happening, but that's why I be so frustrated.
Look at Memphis. I mean, Mississippi. They didn't cut the water off in Mississippi. Our people just don't believe it's real.
So I do believe, brother, the solution is in individualism. In my father's house, there are many mansions. That perspective, and also we Moorish Sons of America, we practically can be blessed at any day, at any time. I mean, Negro, Black, and color are our people. They're Moorish American. We hang with them. We know them. We sing with them. We walk with them, and we're turning heads. Now, we don't have any new members that's astronomically rich, but we got a lot of astronomically wealthy people in our nation. So, it could be any day for someone to turn their head. We got financing because if I was a member, if I had built my career up to be, for example, my mom cohorts a lot often with Jonetta Patton, and Miss Jonetta Patton is Usher mom. So my mom come home from Jonetta house and it's okie dory, but I'm in my mind Moorish American. I'm knowing like, wow. If I am more had 100, if I this more had 300 million, then I would be a part of my temple in a greater fashion. It's not to mention the platform that that new members can open up in any day, and this is Allah, so I just say don't despair. And then also I speak on evidence like our public law 101. So or whatever it is that we might be able to take part in assisting.
For real, it's exactly that. The more of us that actually not just come to meetings, but is living the life, and the people within your life actually see that your life is changed for the betterment, then those are the ones that's going to come in. They're going to join and they're going to be a part. There's not going to be any, my leader over here is saying that ain't true, and that, but because a lot of people don't read. It's whatever they leader say. Hey, it's ridiculous. I'm looking at, for example, right? Tariq Nasheed said that he wanted to have a museum for what he called foundational Black Americans, right?
Oh, Lord.
And he said, I'm going to need at least $1 million to start off. He got more than $1 million. Because he was able to do that, now Revolt Diddy came in and said, I want to give you your own show now. Because he was able to influence that many people in the world to give him over $1 million.
Okay.
Right?
But what was the substance? What's the outcome? What was the purpose of it?
To have their own museum, foundationally Black American museum.
Yeah, but we can look at it and see some stuff. But
he went and purchased the building, and they're gonna start renovations and so on and so forth, right? So when I look at Moors spend more time being divisive and bickering and arguing, like you just said, even about the flag placement, on social media than we do on unifying, on ideas, concepts, things that we can come and do together. Again, because my leader said, you know how many leaders, it's funny. I had a sister call me. I spoke to her the other day, and she said, I was told the leadership said that I couldn't speak. I got in trouble for coming on one of your calls, and I was told by the leadership that we wasn't allowed to do that because it was called fraternizing. Like, this is the things that the leaders are doing.
I feel like you under the wrong leader though, if that's the case. But you don't know what you don't know. So you don't know that you looking for answers as Moors. But I think you hit the nail on the head a minute ago. You said when like I said, we bring Moors into the temple, or let's take it back to the basic. If I encounter somebody tomorrow, and whether it's through seeing my fez, through seeing something I got on, through having a conversation, they get intrigued by Moorish science, and we start having the conversation, we start introducing them to the Circle 7 and information, and then we get them to the point of getting their nationality proclaimed, and we get them to the point of getting on the calls. Now it's like we got to be able to walk them through a process to show them a better life than the one that they had prior to them finding the temple. Because what good is exposing people? And this is where I feel like people get lost in Moorish science. It's so much information. It is kind of overwhelming. And sometimes, for me, I went through the stage where, I came into the information. I got to a point where I was almost hating having learned what I learned because I felt like I was in no man's land. So I know too much to go back to where I was at, but I don't know enough to save myself. So now I'm just stuck in this abyss. And so I think that's where we can't leave new Moors that come into this information, because I think people, especially these younger ones, they quick. They can see stuff ain't right with the world, but it's like, well, how do we fix it? What do we do? And so I think that's the trick. It's like when you get a person in, you got to feed, you get the people to come in the doors, you got to feed the people to keep them to stay. Now, I think you do a great job of that. But, again, that's where I'm like, okay, I feel like with a little work and some efforts, and I definitely think once you start, you teaching the series that you taught over the last year, and you get some other information and people start to begin to see results. Like, I can't tell you how many videos I watch on YouTube that's got thousands and thousands of views. And a lot of these people teaching partial information, you know what I'm saying? Like, it ain't even the full information, but they got 40, 50, 100,000, 200,000 views because people want to know how to get out of this fictitious stuff that we dealing with. So I know the people out there.
Yeah, the people definitely are out there. I want to get Brother E. Rice Bay in Islam.
I'm gonna be quiet. I'm sorry.
No. You well. That's what this is for.
True that. Islam, my sister.
Islam. Definitely more, like I was saying, it's going to take us that's living the life where those who's around us says, that's the life I want to live. I want to live that life. I want to live that life too. Maybe show me, teach me how to live that life. Other than that is you waiting on Moors that's a part of all these other temples to come in. More that is just not. You'll be surprised how many calls we get throughout the week. Man, I wish my leader was teaching this and my leader, but your leader's not. And I'm teaching it, but you not coming over here because you want to be faithful to your leader, which is crazy. it's just not logical whatsoever.
Islam.
And then they get upset with their leaders and they go on Facebook and they do YouTube videos of how much they hated. And now they left the temple because this wasn't this and that wasn't that. And it's just a continual cycle.
Islam.
And that's why I say my part and what I do is just really just giving the information. And whoever grabs it, grabs it. Whoever doesn't,
Islam.
don't.
Islam. Islam. Okay, Glover. Yeah, I'm glad you said that, 'cause that's where Brother McClady left off of when he was demonstrating about people wanting to be out of this condition.
Mhm.
Now, this is what I can grasp of what I've learned about Moorish science is have no fear in approaching those who are in power and demonstrating what the prophet demonstrated. He went to the government, the president, with Joe Wilson, right?
Mhm.
And requested the
Well, at
document.
that time it was Coolidge.
Okay, Coolidge. Okay,
Mhm.
Coolidge. He requested the documents belonging
Mhm.
to his people, Islam. So
So,
my demonstration is this: in knowing what I know and have followed these instructions, they're there. These divine instructions are there for us to have no fear and gathering up enough information to go to those who are in power and request what belongs to you naturally. And you do it in an intelligent tone, and you will receive a favorable reply. Islam. So Moors have to be courageous enough to put their paperwork together and then nationality and the baptismal certificates
mhm.
and presenting those documents as to
Mhm.
who they are.
Mhm.
And you can request whatever it is that you think you might need.
Man,
Islam.
Islam.
This is what I've come to the conclusion that I am going to attempt to do myself, having gathered enough information from the temple that I'm a part of now
Mhm.
that is teaching this information
Mhm.
that I wasn't privy to before.
Mhm.
So now that I'm privy to it and I've learned it, me personally, I know exactly what to do. Islam. So in
Mhm.
answer to Brother McClady Eel's demonstration, is to gather up some young Moors yourself and teach them Islam and go to those who are in power and
Islam.
ask an intelligent tone, and you will receive a favorable reply. We have what it is that we're seeking is a portion of land that Sister Kate Love have been demonstrating to us for quite some time now and tracing ourselves back. And the Quran demonstrates that mastermind trace themselves back, thus they know Islam.
Islam.
So having that on with that knowledge, we can obtain what it is that we're seeking. I've been hearing it on the chat for quite some time now. More will go there than they'll pull back. Just write out, ask the question, where's my 40 acres and a mule? Islam,
Islam.
let's go get it. I
That's
hear the floor.
gratitude. Um, it is again, it's really about, you being the example and you living that life. Like you said, you went to the group of brothers just yesterday and you said, hey, look, y'all are doing this. Hey, y'all trying to get somewhere, but you ain't got nowhere because you're half doing it. You have doing it and you're not going to get anywhere because you keep trying to get, you keep trying to stifle information from this and that and this and that, but you're not really going to the foundation, the basics. Instead, you're just following someone. Someone said, this is the reason why when I teach directly from the book.
Islam.
I'm not teaching from, oh, well, you know, this is just my perspective. Now I add my understanding to it, but I'm teaching directly from the books. I'm not just making up anything. Think about how many Moors really believe that we are under the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. It's ridiculous how many Moors believe that.
We're still in the water.
Those Moors want to be Frenchmen. They keep telling everybody that we need to be under our consulate and that Morocco is supposed to, like the Kingdom of Morocco is supposed to come and help us. And they want to be Frenchmen. They're following all of those treaties, that treaty and all the other treaties that follow those treaties. Even I teach, if you're going to use, I teach that in new members class. If you're going to use those treaties, use it for what it was purposed to be, which is a prayer. It literally has the Fatiha in it. But the Moors don't want to be religious. They'll tell you, I ain't religious. There's a whole case law that you can go look at where a sister, can't recall her name, but she was arguing that she didn't have to pay taxes. She was tax exempt. This is in federal U.S. District Court. So the judge asked her, what temple are you a member of? Oh, I ain't a part of no temple. Well, then how is it that you using anything from the Moorish Science Temple of America?
Islam.
How are you using Prophet Noble Drew Ali? Even the judge knows. You can't use something that you're not a part of. It's an incomplete argument. But because my master teacher said the temples have been infiltrated and we need to have our own consulate and we need to petition Morocco and we need to send notification to Homeland Security. Homeland Security is a baby agency. Homeland Security ain't even older than me. And this is the stuff that these people are teaching in the, you got to go to Homeland Security and tell Homeland Security this. And then you got to go to this one and tell that one that. Our issues start with not knowing who we are. Most of us can't even name our 4th times grandmother and grandfather. And we have the resources to go and find out. It's not like 1928 during the time of the Prophet. Our problem is many of us are way too lazy. So many of us are okay with whatever our leader says and don't question it. Because I don't want to go and study. I feel like my leader is well studied, so I'll just listen to them.